Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is actually going to be all about my reading tracker. Full disclosure, my reading tracker is something that I have Frankensteined from a bunch of other bigger booktubers' reading trackers over the last year or so, and I kind of just customized the parts of it that I needed to customize to make it a little bit more mine. So most notably, I drew from G from Book Roast's Caw Pile, I drew from Allie from the Hardback Hoarder's yearly reading tracker, and I also borrowed a series tracker from Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin. Like I said, they're going to look really similar, but I changed a lot to fit what I specifically wanted and moved a lot of things around to fit exactly what I wanted. I'm fairly handy with Excel, like formulas and stuff, so I made a lot of that look more like what I wanted it to, but yeah, I guess that without any further ado, why don't we just jump into what I will be using for my 2022 yearly reading tracker. Okay, so jumping right into it, this is the main screen. So as you can see, I have called it the Escapes Reading Tracker because that is the acronym that works best for me. G uses Caw Pile, but for me, the Caw Pile didn't really work out the way that I really wanted to. Those aren't specifically the things that I wanted to base my ratings off of, so I did a little bit of research through a lot of blogs online, and I found certain criteria that worked better for me. Conveniently, it is the same amount of letters, but I do use escapes. So for me, the E stands for how much I enjoyed it, the S stands for how I rated the start of the story, the C is for the characters, the A is for the atmosphere, P is for plot, E is for how I thought the ending was, and S is for style. I also have a little bit of a cheat sheet down here on this tab where I kind of go through and I just say what each of these means to me, I guess, kind of. It's more of like what I'm looking for in each of those ratings, and above that, I kept this from G's Caw Pile, but the rating categories are pretty much really bad, mediocre, really good, or outstanding, and how they translate over into a star rating. I think I also kept the rough guide from G as well. Like I said, this is all Frankenstein, so a lot of this stuff I just kept. But going back to the first one, so right here is the section where you would put book titles. So for example, book number 1, which I read in, let's say, January by author number 1. Over here, I can put the date that I started, which will say January 1st is when I started it, and then if I manage to finish it on the 3rd, it'll tell me that I managed to read it in 3 days, which is nice. Over here, this works exactly the same way as G's Caw Pile does, so say I enjoyed it pretty well. I'd say it was about a 7 on a scale of enjoyment. The beginning was what did it for me. I feel like it didn't really stick the beginning, so maybe like a 5 because it was a slow start. But I really liked the characters by the end, and I really enjoyed the atmosphere that the author spent the whole time building as well. The plot was okay. It was a little bit predictable, so maybe a 6. Like I said, I did like the ending a lot, so we'll go for an 8 for that. And overall style in terms of writing and word choice and all of that, it was okay, so I'll give it a 7. So overall for me, the book was a 4 stars. And then you go over here to this side where you track that it was we'll say it was a fantasy meant for young adults, and I read it physically. It was about 400 pages, and it was published this year. Now, type, I just have it so that I can track whether or not I'm reading a lot of series or standalones or rereads. This is a thing that I also kept from Allie from the Hardback Hoarder because I really liked being able to track if I was rereading anything or staying in series or standalones. So this was a part of a series, and then I acquired it from, let's see, if I read it physically, we'll say that I owned it. And here is where I track the type of rep. So you can put multiple, you can put none. We'll say this had LGBT rep, and this is where I would track what kind of rep that was. Whether or not the author was a man, a woman, non-binary, or there were multiple authors or whatever, you would put that here. We'll say non-binary. And if the author was POC, you can check that for yes, it'll track that as well, and what their ethnicity is if you care about that. So all of that is done to translate over here into this second tab where it'll show you the books that I read per month, and that'll expand into February through December for the rest of the year as well. and add them together into how many books total that I've read through the year. I also have it here to show me how many pages I have managed to read each month, and it adds all of that up here in this box. A lot of this is Frankenstein from both G and Allie from the Hardback Hoarder. Yearly stats, even monthly stats, they all kind of, they're the same general idea because people all kind of want to track the same thing, but I particularly liked in Allie's that she tracked what her favorite books were every single month of the year. I really liked that, just kind of keeping a little bit of a reading log for what she liked the most. So then down here, it tracks how much of each of these types percentage-wise that I read. So right now it's 100% series, but as I add more standalones or rereads, it'll show you the percentage of each of those that I read. This will come in for a later tab, and I will show you guys that momentarily. Over here is the genres that I read, and right now it's just 100% fantasy, but as you add more of these, it'll change and it'll show you different percentages. Obviously, you guys know how charts work. Same here for all of the star ratings that I give throughout the year. And this is where it tracks each of the places that I acquired the books from, whether they were owned already, from Scribd, Libby, Hoopla, wherever. This box is tracking the format, if I read them mostly on ebook, or I like to differentiate between just ebooks and e-arcs because I like to see how many arcs that I've been reading, or physical copies, or graphic novels, or if I read it in multiple formats, which is a thing that I do tend to do a lot. And then down here it tracks the types of representation that I have checked off on the previous page, and the age range for the intended audience is down here as well. Now all of this is for the year, but over here is where I broke it down into the monthly components, so it'll only track this one for January, it'll only track those categories for February, and so on and so forth, but it is all the same categories. This page was mostly taken from Allie from the Hardback Hoarder as well. I really liked that she separated into yearly and monthly, just because I like seeing things at the end of every month, but at the end of the year I also like seeing all of those stats compiled together, so it's really nice to see them kind of just broken up like this, but I'm not really going to go too in depth here, but it is the entire year, January through December. So the next tab is the series tracker, which is what it is. It just tracks my series that I've been reading. My inspiration for this is what came from Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, but I did change pretty much most of it. The general format may be similar still, but I wanted it to look a little bit differently than, or I wanted it to work a little bit differently than what he had. So we'll start over on the left column. So as for the series, for example, for something easy, we'll just start with the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. It's kind of up to you if you want to include novellas in all of these as well. I guess that I will, which would mean that technically, I guess there's 5 which would mean that there's 5 in the Stormlight Archive, so total number in the series would be 5. I have yet to actually read Rhythm of War still, so I've only read 4 of them. I've read up to Dawn Shard. The series status would be whether or not Brandon Sanderson is still writing the Stormlight Archive. He is still writing the Stormlight Archive, and so far my favorite book has been Words of Radiance. So, am I up to date on this series? I will not check that box because no, I am not, but you can see over here that it is in progress and there are only 5 out so far. So, based off of my key, it's saying that 5 is out and I do still need to read it. Red means that it doesn't exist or it hasn't been written yet. So, for example, like the Dresden Files is planning something like 25 books or something like that in the series. Those books haven't been written yet, but we do know how many are coming out. But for these, I know that I rated, let's see, I rated The Way of Kings 5 stars, I rated Words of Radiance 5 stars, I rated Edge Dancer, I want to say 5 stars as well, and I rated Oathbringer 5 stars. So as an average, I rated the whole series 5 stars, but I have yet to rate Rhythm of War anything. And when I do type something into this box, say for example I don't like it as much as the rest of the series, that will then turn to green, and I can change that to 5. So, then I would be able to check off that I was in fact up to date on that series and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So that's pretty handy for me just because I am in the middle of a lot of different series at the moment. If I were to show you my 2021 spreadsheet, which I won't because it's actually embarrassing how full this page is, there would be a lot going on there. But if you guys are interested, I guess I could show you a little bit more about how this works. I designed a lot of this color coding system mostly based off of what I preferred, but like I said, the inspiration for this entire page came from Gavin. So moving on to the next page is my ARC tracker. The concept for this, once again, came from one of those other reading trackers, but I designed a lot of this on my own based off of how I wanted it to look. So, for example, say this ARC comes out later on this month. Say it comes out on October 17th, and it is ARC number 1 by author number 1. I know that a lot of those other booktubers get really creative with this, but I'm just not that creative. Sorry, guys. So it's from series 1, and say it's number 3 in the series. So as far as ARC status goes, it's whether or not I have requested it. Say like I requested it on NetGalley and I'm waiting. If I check that off, this entire line will turn blue. If it is approved, this entire line will turn green. And if my ARC request has been denied, the whole thing will turn red. I don't know why I bothered to put NA in there. I don't really know what any of the other statuses would be in terms of ARCs that I'm interested in. But yeah, those are the options. Okay, so this is where the publisher is that I would have requested it from, and whether or not the publisher has any specific requirements, such as you can't put the review out 2 weeks before it's released, so on and so forth. I would put that there just as a reminder. The format would be whether it was an audio ARC, an e-ARC, or a physical ARC, and then whether I requested it from NetGalley, Edelweiss, the publisher, or the author. So you'll notice that when I clicked off denied, it automatically put a mark through all of these lines. I did that just so that yes, it's red and it obviously stands out, but I wanted to have it crossed off my list as well so that I can track what I do still have to have a review out there for. So if you assume that I got approved for this particular ARC, it turns green so that I know that it was approved, and I have until, what's today? And then I have until tomorrow to review the ARC. So say that I finally finished it, I can say that I read it, and then if I also put my review out for it already, I can click reviewed, and once again the line shows up saying that I don't need to worry about it. This also happens if I tried to read it and I did not want to finish it, or I didn't even start it, which has happened for me with some ARCs before. I can check that off, and once again the line goes through it saying I'm not putting a review out there for it because it's not something that I finished. I do have a couple of charts over here tracking these as well, and it tracks the number of each of the 3 categories that I have per month. Again, the one for this year is kind of messy. I'm not going to show you guys that, but the concept is there, as well as the reading status of whether I have read and reviewed it or if I haven't finished reading it yet. Moving on to the next tab. Sorry, it's missing the title at the top, but this is the Books Bought or Sold tab. Again, this was taken from, I believe, Allie from the Hardback Hoarder. I messed with it a little bit because I had some other things that I wanted to do with it that were not already on there. So, for example, if I bought the book in January, book number 1 by author number 1 from series number 1, and it was number 2 in the series. We'll say that I bought it physically and I got it from, let's say, Barnes & Nobles, and I paid, maybe I got 20% off on it this time. I got a discount on this book. It was usually like $18 or $20, but I got it for $16, which is kind of nice. Say it was $20 to begin with, and whether or not I have read it. So we'll say yes. Transaction type is just whether or not I bought it or sold or it was gifted. So we'll say I bought this one, so nothing would go there and nothing would go there. So over here it does track how much money that I've spent throughout the year and the number of books that I have bought, and also how many of the books that I have bought this year that I have also managed to read. And then if you get into the sold section, we will say in February, I had a different book by a different author, and I didn't really have any need for it anymore. It was the first book in the series, and I didn't really care enough for it, so I decided to take it to Half Price Books. So I would skip all of this stuff, and I would then say sold. We'll say that I sold it to Half Price Books for $5. And here's where I would say where it was sold. So all of that is also tracked over here. And what this all does is it tracks pretty much how much money I have saved between my buying and my selling books. So I earned $5, but in total this year I really spent $11 on books because I earned $5 of it back by selling that. And this is how many dollars that I saved by buying something discounted. I do a lot of this with ebooks or like with half price books, so I'll find the MSRP price of that book that I got. And this tracks how much money I saved just by buying it discounted. And this over here tracks the number total of the formats that I've bought and the graph bar for all of that. And that is the end of it. I already showed you my cheat sheet. This is, for me, the easiest way of tracking everything. Honestly, it was just, I tried the physical journal, I tried a digital e-journal, like a kind of tablet journal sort of a thing to track my reading, and honestly, the spreadsheet is the only thing that worked for me. I have kept up with it pretty religiously this entire year. It is October, and every single book that I have read has been entered into my 2021 reading tracker. It's still a work in progress. I'm still fiddling with what things that I like and what things that I don't like, but overall, this is what has been working for me, and this is what I will continue to use into 2022. So I guess that is it for this video for me today, guys. If you have any questions about my reading tracker, I will answer them, I guess, so just leave it in the comments. I will also be linking Allie and G and Gavin for all of the credit, because obviously I did not come up with this on my own. But other than that, yeah, that is it for me today, guys. So don't forget to like it if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to. Don't forget to check out the description box, where I'll put those links that I talked about, as well as affiliate links, and my Instagram, my Goodreads, and my Twitter, in case you guys want to follow me on any of those. But other than that, I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!